Beneath the glitz and glamour of New York City, my own brother wants to kill me, and my father calls me a monster. Even though the world calls me beautiful, I'm trapped inside a hollow shell of freedom, clutching a master's degree that can't save me. There is no escape, because waiting on the other side of that door is my father's cruelty and my mother's tears. So every night, I pray for death. In this luxurious prison, it feels like suicide is the only key to my freedom. But why? Why is a highly educated young woman living right here on American soil still bound by such chains of slavery? What was her crime? What did she do to make her own flesh and blood, her father and brother, become her worst enemy? Is her life really being destroyed by some invisible curse or black magic? Or is there a twisted, dark, psychological trauma deep within this family? And where does this nightmare end? Does she escape to build a new life, or does it all end in a tragic death? I'm Sneha, and today I'm going to uncover the dark truth hiding behind the bright city lights. Let's dive deep into the full story. The glowing red numbers on my digital alarm clock read 3:14 a.m. It's that specific time of night when New York City is supposed to be the city that never sleeps. But right now, it feels like the city that never cares. Outside my window, I can hear the distant rhythmic hum of the subway trains vibrating beneath the pavement, carrying people to late shift jobs or back from parties I was never invited to. I'm lying in bed, staring at the ceiling fan cutting through the stale air, and the thought is there again. It's always there. It's like a background app on a phone that drains the battery even when you aren't using it. It would be so easy to just turn it off. That's what I call it, the off switch. I don't think of it as dying anymore. I think of it as just stopping the noise of my father's voice, the noise of my own heart beating too fast, the noise of a life that looks perfect on paper but feels like a slow suffocation in reality. I sit up, the sheets pooling around my waist. My room is nice. To an outsider, it looks like the bedroom of a successful 28-year-old woman. Expensive furniture, a vanity stocked with high-end skincare, a closet full of clothes I wear to look the part. But this isn't a room, it's a cell, and I'm the inmate on death row, waiting for a pardon that isn't coming. I swing my legs over the side of the bed. My feet hit the cold hardwood floor, and a shiver runs up my spine. I walk over to the window and look out at the skyline. The lights of Manhattan blink in the distance, mocking me. Millions of people out there, millions of dreams, and here I am, trapped in a 2-story house in Queens, suffocating under the weight of my own family. My name is Jennifer. I have a master's degree in business administration. I have a 3.9 GPA. I have a smile that I've perfected in the mirror for years. The kind of smile that says, I'm fine, everything is great, thank you for asking. But if you could see inside my head, you'd scream. Earlier tonight, around 7 p.m, we were at the dinner table. That's where the theatre happens. That's where my father performs his daily ritual of breaking me down. You eating rice again? He had asked. He didn't yell. He never yells when he wants to hurt you. He uses a tone that sounds like disappointment, which cuts deeper than anger ever could. He poked at his own plate, not looking at me. Look at you. You're massive, a giant. Do you think any man is going to want to marry a woman who takes up this much space? I'm 5'6". In America, I'm average, maybe even tallish, confident, statuesque. But in this house, I am a monster. I had put the spoon down, my appetite vanishing instantly. I didn't eat lunch, Dad, I whispered. Excuses, he scoffed, wiping his mouth with a napkin. Always excuses. This is why you're nearly 30 and rotting in my house. You're a burden, Jennifer. You know that? A heavy, expensive burden. I work all day. I break my back. And for what? To feed a daughter who looks like a linebacker? My mother sat there staring at her plate. She never speaks up. She just shrinks. She shrinks until she's almost invisible, hoping his rage doesn't turn toward her. But tonight, he was focused on me. If you were gone, he mumbled, and almost to himself, but loud enough for me to hear, I could sleep. The stress you cause me, my blood pressure is up because of you. You're killing me. You're killing me? That phrase has been echoing in my head for 6 hours. He says I'm killing him, but he has no idea that I'm the one who is already dead. I'm just a walking corpse with a master's degree. I turn away from the window and walk toward the full-length mirror in the corner of my room. I hate this mirror. I hate what it shows me. I look at my reflection in the dim light. My brain doesn't see what others see. When friends, on the rare occasions I'm allowed to see them, tell me I'm pretty, I think they're mocking. When a guy at a coffee shop smiles at me, I check my shirt to see if I spilled something, because all I see is the monster my dad talks about. I pull at the skin on my arms. I pinch my waist. I scrutinise every inch. Too big, too much, unlovable. The body dysmorphia isn't just insecurity. It's a hallucination. It warps reality until I look like a carnival mirror reflection of myself. I grew up thinking that if I just achieved enough, they would love me. That was the deal, right? The immigrant family contract. You get the grades, you get the degree, you make them proud, and then you get the love. So I did it. I stayed in the library until midnight. I aced every exam. I got the masters. I remember the day of my graduation. I was wearing the cap and gown, holding the diploma, sweat trickling down my back under the heavy fabric. I looked at my dad, waiting for it, waiting for the good job, waiting for the hug. He looked at the diploma, then looked at my shoes. You should have worn heels, he said. You look dumpy in those flats. That was the moment something snapped inside me. That was the moment I realised the goalposts would always move. I could become the president of the United States and he would complain that the White House isn't big enough. And now I'm stuck in the family business. That's the joke of the century. It's not a business. It's a control mechanism. I manage the accounts. I handle the logistics. I do the work of 3 people. And for what? An allowance, not a salary, an allowance. Why would you need a salary? Dad argues whenever I bring it up. You live under my roof. You eat my food. Why do you need money to run away? That's his biggest fear, that his punching bag will grow legs and walk away. So he keeps me broke. He keeps me dependent. He crippled my wings and then mocks me for not flying. I walk over to my nightstand and open the top drawer. Underneath, a stack of books on positive thinking and manifesting your dreams, books that I bought in a desperate attempt to fix my broken brain. There's a small orange prescription bottle, sleeping pills. I'm not supposed to have them. I stole them from my mum's cabinet a month ago. I pick up the bottle. It rattles, a comforting sound. Just take them all, the voice in my head whispers. It's 3 a.m. No one will know until noon. By then, it'll be too late. You'll be free. No more insults. No more feeling like a waste of space. No more fear. The fear, God, the fear is the worst part. I freeze. I hear a sound. It's coming from the floorboards above me, my brother's room, or maybe he's coming up from the basement. My brother, 3 years younger than me, but he holds so much power. He doesn't work. He doesn't study. He sits in the dark playing violent video games, smoking weed and letting his anger ferment like a poison. I hear a heavy footstep in the hallway. My heart hammers against my ribs. Is he coming here? Last week, he came into my room at 2 a.m. because the Wi-Fi was slow. He blamed me. He said I was downloading movies and slowing down his game. I wasn't even awake. He grabbed my laptop, my expensive MacBook that I saved up for years to buy with my secret stash of cash, and he smashed it against the wall. I remember screaming, "Stop!" And then he turned to me. His eyes weren't human. They were black holes. He grabbed my hair and shoved me onto the bed. "Shut up," he hissed. "You useless bitch. You make a sound and I'll break your face." Dad heard the noise. He came out of his room and what did he do? Did he protect me? Did he call the police? No. He looked at my broken laptop, then at me, shivering on the bed. "Why do you provoke him?" Dad asked me. "You know he has a temper. Why do you have to be so difficult? Why do you provoke him?" I gripped the pill bottle tighter. My knuckles turned white. I am trapped between a father who destroys my soul with words and a brother who threatens my body with violence and a mother who watches it all like a silent ghost. The footsteps in the hallway pause right outside my door. I stop breathing. The silence in the house is deafening. I can hear the blood rushing in my ears. The doorknob, did it just move? Just a fraction of an inch? Is he coming in? If he comes in, I don't know what he'll do. He's been getting worse lately. More erratic, more aggressive. Yesterday, I saw him sharpening a pocket knife in the kitchen, staring at me while I washed the dishes. He didn't say a word. He just smiled. A cold, dead smile. I look at the pill bottle in my hand again. Maybe this is the only way to win, I think. If I take these, he can't hurt me anymore. Dad can't call me a monster anymore. Tears start to stream down my face, hot and fast. I don't want to die. I really don't. I want to live. I want to fall in love. I want to see Paris. I want to wear a dress that makes me feel beautiful. I want to eat a meal without feeling guilty. I want to breathe. But I don't know how to breathe underwater, and this house is an ocean and I'm chained to the bottom. The footsteps outside the door shuffle again. Then a low guttural cough, and then the sound of footsteps walking away down the hall toward the bathroom. He's not coming in. Not tonight. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding, gasping for air like I've just surfaced. I drop the pill bottle back into the drawer and slam it shut. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely close it. I collapse back onto the bed, burying my face in the pillow to muffle the sob that rips through my chest. I survived the night, or at least I survived this moment. But morning is coming, the sun will come up, the city will wake up, and I'll have to put on the mask again. I'll have to go downstairs, make coffee, and pretend I didn't almost swallow a bottle of pills. I'll have to face the monster in the mirror. But as I lie there, staring into the darkness, a new terrifying thought creeps in. The footsteps, they didn't go to the bathroom. I realise now the floorboards didn't creak the way they do near the sink. They creaked near the stairs. He didn't go to the bathroom. He went downstairs to the kitchen where the knives are. And then I hear it, the faint metallic sound of a drawer sliding open. My blood runs cold. He's awake, he's agitated, and he's armed. I'm not the only one with dark thoughts in this house, but while mine are about ending my own pain, I think his might be about inflicting it on everyone else. I pull the blanket up to my chin, eyes wide open, staring at the locked bedroom door. Please, God, let the sun come up. Just let the sun come up. The sun didn't rise. It just sort of leaked into my room, grey and uninvited. I hadn't slept, not really. After the sounds in the kitchen ceased, the sliding drawer, the footstep, I had spent the rest of the night in a state of paralysis, listening to the house settle. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a threat, but now at 7 a.m, the morning light stripped away the shadows, leaving only the stark, cold reality of another day. I dragged myself out of bed. My body felt heavy, not just from exhaustion, but from the sheer weight of existence. I walked to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. The lock was flimsy. A cheap gold-coloured privacy lock that anyone could pop open with a screwdriver, but the click gave me a tiny, pathetic sense of security. Then I faced it, the enemy, the mirror. To anyone else, it's just glass and silver backing. To me, it's a funhouse distortion that never ends. I stripped off my pyjamas and stood there, naked, under the harsh fluorescent vanity lights. My eyes scanned my reflection, but my brain didn't register a human woman. I didn't see the curves that my friends from college used to envy. I didn't see the 5-6 inches frame that was technically ideal. I saw a grotesque expansion of flesh. I pinched the skin at my waist. Disgusting, the voice in my head hissed. It sounded suspiciously like my father. Look at that, it spills over. You take up too much space. I turned to the side. My thighs looked like tree trunks to me. My arms, which were just normal arms, looked like they belonged to a wrestler. I felt massive, bloated, a giantess in a world built for delicate porcelain dolls. This is what body dysmorphia does. It hijacks your optic nerve and it takes reality and warps it until you're staring at a monster. But the worst part is knowing that this monster was created by words. Years and years of words. You have your grandfather's build, my dad used to tell me when I was 12. Just hitting puberty. Broad shoulders, big hands, not ladylike. Don't wear horizontal stripes, he'd say when I was 16. You look wide enough as it is. And the classic, the one that plays on a loop. You're too intimidating. Men want a flower, Jennifer. You're a tree. I turned on the shower, cranking the heat up until it was almost scalding. I scrubbed my skin raw as if I could wash away the size of me, as if I could scrub until I shrank down to something small enough to be loved. Dressing for the day was a tactical operation. I chose a baggy sweater and loose trousers. I needed to hide. If I wore anything fitted, Dad would comment. If I wore anything colourful, Dad would say I was drawing attention to my flaws. Grey, beige, black, the colours of invisibility. I took a deep breath, unlocked the bathroom door and stepped out into the hallway. The smell of burnt toast and strong coffee wafted up from downstairs. The domestic smell of a normal family. Such a lie. I walked down the stairs, gripping the railing. The kitchen island was the stage where our morning tragedy played out. My mother was at the stove frying eggs. Her shoulders were hunched, her posture permanently apologetic. And there he was, my father, sitting at the head of the table, reading the Wall Street Journal, looking like a respectable businessman, not the tyrant who mentally dismantled his daughter every night. "Good morning," I mumbled, heading straight for the coffee pot. He lowered the paper. His eyes swept over me, starting at my feet and ending at my messy bun. It was an inspection, a quality control check on a defective product. "That sweater," he said. "No good morning, just the critique. It hangs off you like a potato sack, but I suppose it's better than seeing." He gestured vaguely at my midsection. The alternative. I poured the coffee, my hand trembling slightly. "It's cold today, Dad. It's just a sweater." "You always have an answer," he muttered, returning to his paper. "If you put as much effort into the gym as you do into your excuses, maybe I wouldn't be so embarrassed to introduce you to people." I froze. The mug burned my palm, embarrassed. "I'm a size 6, Dad," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I don't know why I engaged. I knew better. He laughed. A short, sharp bark of a laugh. "Size 6 in whose world?" "Maybe in America, where everyone is obese. In our culture, you are a giant. I showed your photo to a matchmaker yesterday. You know what she asked?" I didn't want to know. I really, really didn't want to know. "She asked if you had a thyroid problem," he said, taking a sip of his tea. "She asked if you were healthy for childbearing because you look sturdy like a peasant woman who works in the fields." My mother dropped a spatula. It clattered loudly against the stovetop. She didn't look at us. She just picked it up and kept cooking. She was Switzerland. Neutral. Silent. I felt the tears pricking my eyes, hot and stinging. "Don't cry," I told myself. "Do not give him the satisfaction." "I'm going to work," I said, grabbing my car keys from the counter. I couldn't eat. The thought of food now made me nauseous. "Sit down," Dad commanded. His voice dropped an octave. "Your brother isn't up yet. We eat as a family." "I have to open the office," I lied. I just needed to get out. "I said sit down." He slammed his hand on the table. The silverware rattled. I sat. My legs gave out and I sank onto the hard wooden chair. And then I heard the footsteps. Thud, thud, thud. My brother was coming down the stairs. The memory of last night came rushing back. The creak of the floorboards, the kitchen drawer, the knife. I looked at the kitchen counter, the knife block. One of the slots was empty. The large chef's knife. My heart started hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I looked at my dad, but he was reading again. He didn't notice the empty slot. He didn't care. My brother Ryan, let's call him that, though he doesn't deserve a name, shuffled into the kitchen. He was wearing boxer briefs and a torn t-shirt. His hair was greasy, matted against his forehead. He was 25, but he moved like an old, angry man. He didn't say a word. He walked past me and I smelled it, the stale scent of weed and something metallic. He opened the fridge, grabbed a carton of orange juice and drank directly from it. Dad didn't say a thing. If I had done that, I would have been lectured for an hour about hygiene and manners. But Ryan was the son, the prince, the broken, violent prince. Ryan turned around, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. His eyes locked onto mine. They were bloodshot and cold, so incredibly cold. "What are you looking at?" he snarled. I looked down at my coffee. Nothing. "You were looking at me." He stepped closer. I could feel his heat. "You think you're better than me because you have a degree? Because you put on that suit and pretend to be important?" "Ryan, sit down," Mum whispered from the stove. "Shut up, Mum," he screamed. Mum flinched physically, shrinking into the corner. Dad just sighed, turning a page. "Ryan, calm down. Your sister is just leaving." "She's always looking at me," Ryan muttered, pacing the small kitchen, watching me, spying on me. He was paranoid. The drugs were making it worse. Then he reached into the pocket of his shorts. My breath hitched. Was he going to pull it out? The knife? Here in front of Dad? He pulled out a lighter and a pack of cigarettes. He flicked the lighter. Click, click, whoosh. Staring at the flame. "I fixed the Wi-Fi," he said softly, staring at the fire. "It was the router, but if it slows down again tonight, I'm going to smash more than just a laptop." He looked at me through the flame. "You hear me, Jen? I'll smash everything." I pushed my chair back, the sound screeching against the tile. "I am late," I choked out. I grabbed my purse and practically ran for the back door. "Running away again," Dad called after me. "That's all you're good at, running and eating." I slammed the door shut, cutting off his voice. The cool morning air hit my face, but I couldn't breathe. I fumbled with my car keys, my hands shaking so hard I dropped them on the driveway. I scrambled to pick them up, glancing back at the house. I expected Ryan to be standing in the window, watching me. I got into my car, a 10-year-old sedan that was technically the company's car, not mine, and locked the doors. Only then did I let out a sob. Just one, sharp and painful. I looked in the rearview mirror to wipe my eye, and that's when I saw it. In the back seat, lying on the floorboard behind the passenger seat, it was the chef's knife, the one missing from the block. But it wasn't clean. The blade was smeared with something dark and dry. My stomach dropped to my feet. I turned around, reaching over the seat to get a better look, my mind racing. What did he do? Did he hurt himself? Did he hurt an animal? Or, I remembered the neighbourhood cat that used to come by our porch, the one I sometimes fed scraps to when Dad wasn't looking. I hadn't seen it in 2 days. A wave of nausea rolled over me. I wasn't just living with a toxic family. I was living with a psychopath in the making, and he had planted this here. He knew I took this car. He wanted me to find it. It was a message. I can do this, and next time it won't be the cat. I stared at the knife, paralysed. I couldn't drive. I couldn't go back inside. I was trapped in a metal box with a bloody weapon parked in the driveway of a house that wanted me dead. And the worst part, as I looked at my own face in the rearview mirror, puffy eyes, pale skin, terror-stricken, I heard my father's voice again. Monster. Maybe he was right. Maybe we were all monsters. Some of us just looked like it on the outside, and some of us hid the beast on the inside. I started the engine, my hand trembling on the gear shift. I had to get away anywhere. But as I pulled out of the driveway, I didn't turn left toward the office. I turned right. I wasn't going to work today. I couldn't. I needed answers. I needed to know why this was happening to me, why the universe had cursed me with this life. I drove toward the only place where I thought I could buy some hope. The neon sign flickered in the distance, visible even in the daylight. Madame Zara, psychic spiritual healer. I knew it was a scam. My logical, MBA-educated brain knew it was nonsense, but my desperate, broken heart needed a miracle. Little did I know, I wasn't driving toward a miracle. I was driving straight into a trap that would cost me more than just money. I gripped the steering wheel, the bloody knife rattling on the floorboard behind me, and sped up. The nightmare was evolving, and I was driving deeper into the dark. The steering wheel was slick with sweat under my palms. I had pulled over 3 blocks away from Madame Zara's, idling in the parking lot of a 7-Eleven. I couldn't go in. Not yet. Not with a bloody chef's knife wrapped in a fast food napkin on the floorboard behind me. I sat there, the engine humming, staring at the neon slushy sign in the window of the convenience store. People were walking in and out, kids buying candy, construction workers grabbing coffee, normal lives where they didn't have to check their back seats for murder weapons planted by their own sibling. I reached back, my fingers trembled, pulled the knife closer. I needed to see it again, to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. The blood was dry. Dark, rust-coloured flake. It wasn't a lot, maybe enough to kill a small animal. The cat, I thought, a sob catching in my throat. Mittens. The stray tabby with the torn ear that I had been feeding for months. Ryan hated that cat. He said it scratched his car. He said it was vermin. My brother wasn't just mean. He was eroding, like acid. He started with small things, breaking my toys when we were kids, then stealing money from Mom's purse, then the violent outbursts. But this was an escalation. This was him telling me, without saying a word, I can touch what you love. I can hurt it. And I can put the evidence in your car. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, vibrating so hard against the leather that I jumped. Caller ID, Dad. My stomach clenched. If I didn't answer, he'd call Ryan. If he called Ryan, Ryan would know I was gone. Ryan would know I had found the gift. I swiped answer. Hello? Where are you? Dad's voice was clipped, no greeting. The supplier sent the wrong invoice for the fabric shipment. I need you to pull the file now. I'm out getting coffee, Dad. I'll be there in 20 minutes. 20 minutes, he scoffed. You treat this business like a hobby. Get home now. Click. He hung up. He didn't know. He didn't know his son was a budding psychopath, and his daughter was sitting in a 7-Eleven parking lot holding a bloody knife. I had to go back. The drive back to the house felt like a funeral procession. Every red light felt like a warning. Turn back, run, drive to Canada. But I couldn't. I had no money in my own account. Dad controlled it all. I had no passport. It was in the safe in Dad's office. I was tethered to that house by invisible, unbreakable chain. I pulled into the driveway. The house loomed over me. It was a nice house in a quiet Queens neighbourhood. Brick, 2 stories, manicured lawn. The kind of house where the neighbours wave and say, such a nice family. Lies, all of it. I grabbed the knife. I couldn't leave it in the car. If Dad borrowed the car, he'd find it. I wrapped it tightly in the napkin, then shoved it deep into my oversized purse, buried under my wallet and makeup bag. I walked to the front door, unlocked it and stepped inside. The silence hit me first. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the silence of a predator waiting in the tall grass. Dad? I called out softly. No answer. His car wasn't in the driveway, which meant he was at the warehouse. He had called me to go to his home office to check the digital files. Mum? Nothing. She was probably at the grocery store or maybe hiding in her room with a migraine. She got a lot of migraines lately. I knew they were just a physical manifestation of her fear. I was alone in the house with him. I could hear it now. A low thumping bass vibrating through the floorboards. It was coming from below. The basement. That was Ryan's kingdom, the underground lair where he festered. He had blacked out the windows with tin foil. He had LED strip lights that bathed the room in aggressive reds and purples. It smelled of stale weed, energy drink and unwashed laundry. I tiptoed toward the stairs, intending to go up to my room and hide the knife. Jen! The voice came from the basement door, which was slightly ajar. It wasn't a shout, and it was a flat, monotone statement. I froze, 1 foot on the bottom step of the main staircase. Yeah, I managed to say. My voice sounded thin, like glass about to shatter. Come down here. I have to work, Ryan. Dad called. I said, come down here. There was a shifting sound. The door creaked open wider. I had a choice. Run upstairs, lock my door and pray, or go down there and face the beast. If I ran, he would chase me, and if he chased me, he would be angry. An angry Ryan was a dangerous Ryan. A calm Ryan was manageable, maybe. I turned around. My legs felt like lead. I walked toward the basement door. I descended the wooden steps. The air got cooler, damper. The smell hit me instantly. That musk of teenage boy and aggression. The room was bathed in deep red light. He was sitting in his gaming chair, back to me, staring at 3 massive monitors. On the screen, a soldier was gunning down waves of enemies. The sound was deafening. Gunshots, explosions, screams. He didn't turn around. Close the door, he said. I hesitated. Closing the door meant sealing myself in. Close it! I pushed the door shut. The click of the latch sounded like a prison cell locking. What do you want, Ryan? I really have to... He spun his chair around. He was holding it, not the knife. He was holding a collar. A small pink cat collar with a little bell on it. Mittens collar. My knees gave out. I had to grab the back of the old sofa to stop myself from falling. He dangled the collar from his finger, the little bell jingling softly. Ting! Ting! A cheerful sound in a room of horror. Found this in the yard, he said, his face completely expressionless. Thought you might want a souvenir. Where is she? I whispered, tears spilling over immediately. Ryan, what did you do? He shrugged. It was scratching the paint on the Honda. Dad said he hated that cat. I just solved a problem. I'm a problem solver, Jen, unlike you. You're sick, I choked out. The anger momentarily outweighed the fear. You're a psychopath, he smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a baring of teeth. He stood up. He was taller than me now. He used to be the little brother I protected from bullies. Now he was the bully. He walked toward me slowly, stepping over piles of dirty clothes and game controllers. Don't call me names, Jen. That's not nice. He stopped inches from me. He smelled of sweat and something sour. Did you find my gift in the car? He asked softly. I clutched my purse tighter to my side. He knew. Of course he knew. Why? I asked, looking up at him. Why do you hate me so much? I've never done anything to you. I used to help you with your homework. I used to buy you games with my allowance. Why are you doing this? He tilted his head, looking at me like I was a specimen in a jar. Because you think you're better than this, he said. His voice was low, dangerous. You walk around with your degrees and your books and your sad face, acting like you're too good for this family. You think you're the victim. Oh, poor Jennifer. Dad is so mean to her. He took another step closer. I backed up, hitting the wall. There was nowhere to go. You're not the victim, he spat. You're the favourite. My eyes widened. What? Dad treats me like garbage. He worships you. He treats you like an investment, Ryan screamed, suddenly losing his cool. His fist slammed into the wall next to my head. Plaster dust rained down on my shoulder. I flinched, squeezing my eyes shut. He pushes you because he thinks you can actually do something, Ryan yelled, his face inches from mine. Me? He lets me rot down here. He doesn't expect anything from me. He knows I'm broken, but you're the one he looks at. Even when he's insulting you, he's looking at you. I stood there, stunned. It was a twisted, warped logic. He was jealous of the abuse, jealous of the pressure. So I have to remind you, Ryan whispered, leaning in until his lips brushed my ear. I have to remind you that you're not special. You're just meat. Just like the cat. He reached out and grabbed my purse. No! I shrieked, trying to pull it back. The knife was in there. If he got the knife... He was stronger, much stronger. He yanked the bag from my shoulder, the strap burning my skin. He dumped the contents onto the dirty carpet. Wallet, lipstick, keys, tampons, and the napkin wrap bundle. He kicked the pile, scattering my things. He bent down and picked up the bundle. He unwrapped it slowly. The bloody knife glinted in the red LED light. You brought it back inside, he said, shaking his head. Stupid, very stupid, Jen. What if Dad saw this? He'd think you went crazy. He'd think you killed the cat. After all, you're the one with the mental problems, right? The depression. The pills? He was gaslighting me. He was framing me in real time. He took the knife and ran the flat of the blade against his own cheek. Maybe I should tell him you came at me with this. Self-defense. Who would he believe? The son or the monster daughter? Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through me. He could do it. He could cut himself, scream, and Dad would send me to a psych ward or jail. Please, I begged. I hated myself for begging, but I wanted to live. Ryan, just stop. I won't say anything about the cat. I won't say anything about the laptop. Just let me go upstairs. He looked at me, savouring the power. This was what he wanted. Control. He felt powerless in the world, a dropout with no future, so he needed to be a god in this basement. He tossed the knife onto the sofa. Get out, he said. I didn't wait. I didn't grab my wallet or my keys. I just turned and scrambled for the stairs. But Jen, he called out just as I reached the door. I stopped, hand on the doorknob, shaking. If you ever lock your bedroom door again, I'll take the hinges off. There are no secrets in this house. You belong to us. I ripped the door open and stumbled into the hallway. The bright, natural light of the living room felt blinding after the red hell of the basement. I collapsed on the floor near the kitchen, gasping for air. My chest felt like it was caving in. I looked at my hands. They were shaking so bad I couldn't make a fist. He was right. I belonged to them. I was property. But as the terror began to recede, replaced by a cold, hard numbness, a new realisation took root. Ryan wasn't just a bully. He was a ticking time bomb. And today I saw the timer. It was counting down fast. If I stayed in this house, one of two things was going to happen. One, I would finally succeed in taking those pills and end it all. Or two, Ryan would snap and I would end up like Mittens. I have to do something, I thought, pulling myself up using the kitchen counter. I can't fight them with logic. I can't fight them with money. I've tried everything normal. My eyes drifted to the fridge where a magnet held a takeout menu. Next to it was a small business card I had picked up weeks ago as a joke. Madame Zara. We see what others cannot. We break the chains that bind the soul. I used to think magic was fate. I used to think psychics were con artists preying on the weak. But right now, I was the weak, and science, logic, and the American legal system weren't saving me. Maybe, just maybe, the problem wasn't psychological. Maybe it was spiritual. Maybe there really was something dark attached to this family. I needed to go back to that parking lot. I needed to see her. I grabbed my car keys from the floor where I had dropped them earlier. I left my purse, my money, and the knife in the basement with the beast. I walked out the front door. I didn't care if Dad fired me. I didn't care if Ryan told on me. I was going to find out if I was cursed, because if I wasn't, then the reality was too terrible to accept. I started the car. Next stop, Madame Zara's. The desperate search for a cure or a lie that I could believe in was about to begin. The bell above the door jingled, a cheerful, high-pitched sound that felt completely out of place with the heaviness in my chest. I stepped inside Madame Zara's spiritual healing centre. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of burning sage, lavender, and something that smelled faintly like old carpet. It was a storefront in a strip mall between a laundromat and a vape shop, but inside they had tried to create another world. Velvet drapes covered the walls, blocking out the Grey Queen's afternoon. A small fountain trickled in the corner. It was tacky. It was obviously a trap for tourists and desperate people. And I was the queen of desperate people. I'll be right with you. a voice called from the back. I stood by the counter, clutching my car keys so hard my knuckles turned white. My heart was still racing from the basement, from Ryan's dead eyes, from the blood on the knife. I needed safety. I needed someone to tell me that this wasn't my fault, that there was a reason for all this suffering. A woman emerged through a beaded curtain. She looked nothing like the mystical fortune teller I expected. She was wearing jeans and a black turtleneck, though she had an excessive amount of silver jewellery rattling on her wrists and neck. She looked at me, her eyes sharp, assessing. She didn't see a successful master's graduate. She saw a prey animal. She saw the trembling hands, the puffy eyes, the posture of defeat. "You are carrying a heavy burden," she said, and no hello, just the hook. I let out a shaky breath. I don't know why I'm here. I just saw your card. Sit, she gestured to a round table covered in a purple cloth. The universe doesn't make mistakes. You are here because you are breaking. I sat. The chair was uncomfortable. "My name is Jennifer," I started, my voice cracking. "Names are just labels." She waved her hand dismissively. She reached out and took my hands. Her palms were warm, dry. She closed her eyes. "I feel chaos. I feel a house full of screaming, even when it is silent. I feel a male energy that wants to crush you." My breath hitched. "Ryan, Dad." "Yes," I whispered. "And love?" She frowned, her eyebrows knitting together. "Love is blocked, locked away. You try to reach for it, but it turns to smoke." Tears pricked my eyes again, and this was the sorest spot. The wound that never healed. "I'm 28, I blurted out, the words tumbling over each other. "I've never had a boyfriend, not a real one. I've been on dates, so many dates, matchmakers, app, blind dates." I closed my eyes and the memories flashed like a torture reel. Flashback, 2 years ago, a coffee shop in Manhattan. The guy was an accountant, perfect on paper. Dad approved. I had worn my favourite blue dress. I felt good. I arrived 5 minutes early. He arrived 10 minutes late. He looked at me, scanned me up and down, and his smile didn't reach his eye. "You look healthy," he had said. That word again, healthy. It's code. It means big. It means fat. We talked for 20 minutes. I tried to be charming and I tried to be smart. I talked about my thesis on supply chain economics. He just kept looking at the scone I was eating. "Do you work out?" he asked in the middle of my sentence. "Sometimes," I lied. "I'm really into fitness," he said. "I need a partner who can keep up, hiking, running, someone light on their feet." He didn't ask for a second date. He texted me later saying he didn't feel a spark. Flashback, 6 months ago, a guy from a dating app. We talked for weeks. He was funny. He liked the same books as me. We met at a bar. He was drunk when I got there. He was touchy. He put his hand on my thigh within 5 minutes. When I politely moved it, he got nasty. "You should be grateful I'm even interested," he slurred. "Girls your size don't usually get guys like me." I ran out of that bar and cried in an Uber all the way home. "I'm unlovable," I told Madame Zara, opening my eyes. "My father says I'm a monster. He says I'm too big, too loud, too much. And the men, they leave. Everyone leaves." Zara squeezed my hands tighter. She leaned in, her eyes wide and intense. "It is not your body, child," she whispered. "It is not your personality. You are beautiful. You are a goddess." I wanted to believe her so badly. It was like water in a desert. "Then why?" I choked out. "Why am I alone? Why does my family hate me?" "Because," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "someone has placed a block on you. A curse, an evil eye." My logical brain, the brain that understood statistics and economics, screamed, "This is a scam. Run." But my emotional brain, the traumatized, desperate heart, latched onto it. A curse. If it was a curse, it wasn't my fault. If it was a curse, it meant I wasn't ugly. I wasn't unlovable. I was just afflicted. "A curse?" I asked. "A very strong one," Zara nodded gravely. "Probably done years ago. Maybe a jealous relative. Maybe someone who envied your light. They put a veil over you. When men look at you, they don't see you. They see the distortion the curse creates. They see what the dark energy wants them to see. That's why Dad calls me a monster," I whispered, the realisation washing over me. "He's seeing the curse." "Exactly," Zara said. She sat back, releasing my hand. "And this energy, it feeds on your family. It makes your brother violent. It makes your father cruel. It is a poison in the water of your home." It made perfect sense in that dim, incense-filled room. It was the only thing that made sense. It explained Ryan's madness. It explained Dad's cruelty. It wasn't that they were bad people. They were infected, and so was I. "Can you fix it?" I asked. My voice was small, like a child's. Zara sighed. She looked tired. as if the mere thought of helping me was exhausting. It is deep, she said, rooted to break a curse like this. It requires energy, materials, crystals from the Dead Sea. Candles blessed by monks. It is not simple. I don't care. I said, please, I just want to be free. I want to be married. I want to be happy. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she pulled a small notepad from her pocket. I can do a cleansing ritual, she said, but the materials, they are expensive. How much? For the first session to break the initial seal. She scribbled a number and slid the paper across the table. $500. I stared at the number. $500. I didn't have $500. Not really. I had a credit card that was under my name, but my dad monitored the statements. He saw every purchase. If he saw a $500 charge to Zara Enterprises, he would kill me. But then I remembered the knife. I remembered Ryan's face. If I didn't fix this, if I didn't break this curse, I was going to die in that house anyway. I can pay, I said, but can you run it as something else, please? My father, Zara smiled a warm, understanding, predatory smile. Of course, honey, it will show up as consult services. Very professional. I reached into my purse. My hands were still shaking, but now it was with adrenaline. I was doing something. I was taking action. I handed her the card. She swiped it on a small square reader attached to her phone. Beep! Approved. Good, she said. She stood up and went to a cabinet, pulling out a small velvet pouch and a jar of weird-smelling oil. Take this, she said, handing me the items. Put the oil on your wrists every night before you sleep. Keep the pouch under your pillow, and you must recite the affirmation I give you. I am light. I am love. The darkness cannot hold me. I clutched the items like they were gold. Is that it? Will it work? It is a start, she said, but the curse is strong. You will need to come back. We will need to do a 7 chakra clearing. That will be more work, but for now, this will protect you. I walked out of the shop 10 minutes later, clutching the velvet bag. The wind outside had picked up, biting and cold. I got into my car and locked the door. For a moment, I felt high. I felt powerful. I had a weapon now. Magic oil, crystals. I wasn't just a victim anymore. But as I sat there, the engine idling, the high began to fade. I looked at the receipt in my hand. $500. $500 for oil that smelled like cinnamon and cheap perfume, and a bag of rocks I could probably find in a fish tank. The doubt crept in like a cold fog. What have I done? I thought about my bank account. I had maybe $200 left of my allowance for the month. I had just spent money I didn't have on a prayer. And the worst part, the loneliness was still there. I looked at my phone. No texts, no missed calls from friends asking if I was okay. Just an angry voicemail from Dad demanding to know where the file was. I was 28 years old. I had a master's degree and I was sitting in a strip mall parking lot smelling like incense, terrified of my father, terrified of my brother, and broke. It has to work, I whispered to the empty car. It has to. I put the car in gear and pulled out onto the main road. I couldn't go home yet. I couldn't face them. I drove aimlessly. I drove past the parks where couples were walking dogs. I drove past the restaurants where people were having lunch dates. I saw a girl who looked like me, curvy, tall, brown hair, walking hand in hand with a guy who looked at her like she was the only person in the world. Why her? Why not me? Was it really a curse, or was I just broken? The soulmate Zara promised felt light years away, and the monster my dad saw was waiting for me at the dinner table. I touched the velvet bag in my pocket. Please, I prayed to a God I wasn't sure was listening. Please let this be real, because if magic isn't real, then I have nothing left. But magic, as I was about to find out, doesn't pay the bills, and it certainly doesn't protect you from the financial ruin that was rushing toward me like a freight train. My phone buzzed again. Caller ID, Bank of America, fraud alert. My heart stopped. Dad. He must have seen the notification, or maybe the bank flagged the charge because I never spend that much money. If Dad found out the panic that surged through me wasn't spiritual, it was very, very real. I wasn't chasing ghosts anymore. I was being chased by reality, and reality was about to crash in hard. I pulled over to the side of the road, staring at the phone screen. If I answered, I was dead. If I didn't answer, I was dead. The screen of my iPhone was still glowing with the words fraud alert, pulsing like a warning beacon in the grey afternoon light. I stared at it, my heart hammering against my ribs. In the movies, a fraud alert is a minor inconvenience. You call the bank, you say, yes, I bought the shoes, and you move on. But in my life, in the ecosystem of my father's control, a fraud alert was a flare gun fired directly into his line of sight. The car was suffocatingly silent. I swiped the notification. A robotic voice answered. This is the Bank of America Fraud Prevention Department. We are calling to verify a recent transaction of $500 to Zara Consulting. If you recognise this charge, press 1. My finger hovered over the 1 key. If I pressed it, the charge would go through. The curse-breaking ritual would be paid for, but the transaction would appear on the monthly statement. The statement that lands on my father's mahogany desk on the 1st of every month. The statement he reviews with a red pen, circling anything he deems unnecessary. He'll see it, my brain screamed. He'll ask what Zara Consulting is. But if I didn't press 1, the bank would freeze the card. Dad would get a call. He would know I was trying to spend money. I was trapped. Damned if I do, damned if I don't. I pressed 1, I'd pay. Transaction authorised. Thank you for banking with us. The line went dead. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, feeling the phantom weight of handcuffs snapping around my wrists. I had bought myself maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks before the statement arrived. 2 weeks to come up with a lie so convincing that a man who negotiated million-dollar textile contracts would believe it. I put the car in drive. I had to get to the office. I was already an hour late. The family business, Empire Textiles, was located in an industrial park near JFK Airport. To the outside world, it looked impressive. A large brick building, trucks backing into loading docks, the hum of commerce. And people looked at me when I pulled into the reserved spot. I drove a sedan that belonged to the company, but everyone knew who I was, the boss's daughter, the princess. They thought I had it all. They saw the master's degree, the nice clothes, which were actually 3 years old, the car. They assumed I was living the Nepo baby dream, showing up late, doing zero work and collecting a fat paycheck. If they only knew. I walked through the warehouse floor to get to the offices. The air smelled of cardboard, dust, diesel fumes. Afternoon, Jennifer, one of the forklift drivers called out. He had a smirk on his face. Rough morning. Something like that, Mike, I muttered, keeping my head down. I walked up the metal stairs to the second floor. This was the nerve centre. My father's office was the big one with the glass walls overlooking the warehouse floor, the panopticon from which he watched everyone. My desk was right outside his door, not an office, at a cubicle. I sat down, my body vibrating with anxiety. Where have you been? The voice didn't boom, it sliced. I looked up. Dad was standing in the doorway of his office. He was wearing an expensive suit tailored to hide his gut. He looked powerful. He looked like success. I had a flat tire. I lied. The lies were coming easier today. I had to wait for AAA. He stared at me. He knew I was lying. He always knew. But he had a client meeting in 10 minutes, so he didn't have time to dissect me. The inventory report, he snapped. I needed it an hour ago. The buyers from Ohio are coming tomorrow. If those numbers aren't reconciled, don't bother coming home tonight. I'm doing it now, I said, logging into my computer. He turned to go back into his office, then stopped. He looked at my outfit, the baggy sweater I wore to hide my body. You look like a homeless person, he said casually. We have clients coming. Put on a blazer. Try to look professional. Try to look like you're worth the space you occupy. He slammed his door. I stared at the computer screen, the cursor blinking at me. Worth the space I occupy. I opened the inventory software. This was my life. I had an MBA from a top-tier university. I could be working at Deloitte. I could be working at Google. I could be making 6 figures, living in a studio apartment in Brooklyn, dating guys who like curves, drinking wine on a rooftop. Instead, I was here reconciling fabric rolls for a man who hated me. I worked for 3 hours straight. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I was good at this. I was really good at this. Since I took over the logistics 2 years ago, I had saved the company over $200,000 in shipping costs alone. I had streamlined the warehouse. I had digitized the entire filing system. I was the engine keeping this place running. And my fuel was fear. Around 4 p.m, the office quieted down. Dad left for a business dinner, which usually meant steaks and scotch with his cronies, while Mum ate leftovers alone at home. I was alone in the office. My stomach rumbled. I hadn't eaten all day. but I didn't have cash for the vending machine and I couldn't use the card again. Financial crisis. It sounded like something that happened to Wall Street banks, not to a girl with a rich father. I opened the payroll folder on the shared drive. I shouldn't have been looking. Dad usually handled payroll himself. He was paranoid about anyone knowing what people made. But he had left his password written on a sticky note under his keyboard because he was too busy to remember it. I typed it in. Empire King 1. The spreadsheet opened. I scrolled down looking for my name, Jennifer Khan, Operations Manager. I looked at the column for salary. It was blank. I looked at the column for stipend expense, so $1,500 a month, $1,500. That was it. That was what my master's degree was worth to him, and half of that went to my student loans, which I had to pay because he refused to pay for my useless American education. The rest went to gas, phone bills, and the occasional coffee. I was living below the poverty line while managing a multi-million-dollar company. But that wasn't what stopped my heart. I kept scrolling. I saw a name that shouldn't be there. Ryan Khan. My breath caught in my throat. Ryan, my brother, the one who was currently in the basement playing Call of Duty. The one who had threatened me with a knife this morning. The one who had never worked a day in his life. I looked at his title. Ryan Khan, Senior Security Consultant. I looked at his salary. At $65,000 a year. I blinked. I rubbed my eyes. I looked again. $65,000 plus benefits, plus a car allowance. The room started to spin. The dusty smell of the warehouse suddenly tasted like bile. Ryan was on the payroll. He was making a full salary for doing absolutely nothing, for rotting in the basement, for terrorising me. A wave of hot, blinding rage washed over me. It was different from the fear I felt this morning. This was pure, unadulterated fury. I had spent my entire life trying to be good grades, good degree, good daughter. I worked 60 hours a week. I saved the company money. I took the abuse. And Ryan, the prince, he got paid to exist. He got paid to be a violent, lazy, drug-addled parasite. It's not fair, I whispered to the empty office. My voice shook. It's not fair. I slammed my hand on the desk. A pen holder rattled. This was the golden handcuff. To the world, I was part of this wealthy family. I couldn't get financial aid for college because my dad's tax returns showed millions. I couldn't get government assistance. I was trapped in this gilded cage where I starved while the golden boy feasted. I looked at the screen again. $65,000. That money could have been my freedom. That money could have been an apartment, a therapy session, a life. I felt something snap inside me. It was a small snap, like a twig breaking under a heavy boot, but it was irreversible. I grabbed my phone. I needed to talk to someone, anyone. But who? My friends had stopped calling years ago because I could never go out. My dad won't let me. Sounds cute when you're 16. When you're 28, it just sounds pathetic. I sat back in my chair, the glow of the monitor illuminating my tear-streaked face. This was financial abuse. I knew the term. I had read about it on Reddit late at night, but knowing the term didn't give me the keys to the handcuffs. Then a thought occurred to me, a dangerous, slippery thought. I had access to the accounts, I had the passwords, I knew the vendors. If Ryan was getting paid for doing nothing, why couldn't I get paid for doing everything? I looked at the vendor payments tab. There were hundreds of payments going out every week. Fabric suppliers in India, shipping companies in China, logistics partners. If I created a fake invoice, just one for consulting services, my heart raced. This was embezzlement. This was a felony. This was prison time. But wasn't I already in prison? I stared at the screen. The cursor blinked. Blink, blink, blink. Like a heartbeat. I didn't do it. Not yet. I didn't have the guts. The good girl programming was too strong. I closed the spreadsheet. I logged out. I erased my browser history. I stood up, my legs feeling shaky. I needed to go home. I needed to go back to the house where the senior security consultant was probably high on the sofa waiting to torment me. But as I grabbed my purse, I felt the velvet bag from Madame Zara. The crystals, the oil. Break the chain, she had said. Maybe the magic wasn't in the oil. Maybe the magic was in the rage I was feeling right now. I walked out of the office. The warehouse was dark now, the shadows stretching long and distorted across the concrete floor. As I walked toward the exit, I saw my father's car pulling in. He was back early. Panic spiked. Had he seen the alert? I walked to my car, keeping my head down, praying he wouldn't stop me. He parked his Mercedes right next to my beat-up sedan. He rolled down the window. The smell of scotch wafted out. Did you finish the report? He asked. Yes, Dad. It's on your desk. Good. He looked at me. His eyes were glassy. I got a call from the bank. My heart stopped beating. The world went silent. A fraud alert, he said, his voice slurring slightly. Something about Zara. I gripped the door handle of my car. This was it. The explosion. I can explain, I stammered. He waved his hand dismissively. I told them to decline it, told them it was a mistake, probably some hacker. He looked at me, focusing with effort. You better be careful with that card, Jennifer. Hackers are everywhere. If I see one more weird charge, I'm cutting you off completely. You'll have to walk to work, understood? He didn't know it was me. He thought it was a hacker. He had cancelled the charge. He had cancelled the cure. Understood, I whispered. He rolled up his window and drove toward the loading dock. I stood there in the dark parking lot. He had cancelled the payment to Madame Zara. That meant the ritual wouldn't happen. That meant the curse would stay. But more importantly, it meant he had absolute godlike control over every single penny. Even a desperate $500 attempt to save my soul was vetoed by him with a single phone call. I got into my car. I didn't cry. I was past crying. The rage from the office, the $65,000 rage mixed with the humiliation of the parking lot. It was a volatile cocktail. I started the engine. He cut me off, I said aloud. He cut off my hope. But as I drove home, a dark idea began to form in the back of my mind. Ryan had a salary. Ryan had money. Ryan was the golden boy. And Ryan was a drug addict. Drug addicts keep cash, they keep stashes. If Dad wouldn't give me what I earned, maybe I needed to take it from the person who didn't earn it. I was going home to the basement. I wasn't going to hide from the monster tonight. I was going to rob him. The good girl died in that parking lot, and something else, something desperate and dangerous, was taking the wheel. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, save for the flickering blue light coming from the basement window. That blue light was the heartbeat of the monster. It meant Ryan was down there. It meant he was awake, wired, and lost in his digital world of violence. I sat in the car for a full minute, staring at the brick facade of the house I grew up in. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers ached. I wasn't just Jennifer the good girl anymore. I was Jennifer the employee who had just discovered she was being robbed blind by her own blood. The image of that spreadsheet burned in my mind. $65,000. That number wasn't just a salary. It was an insult. It was every birthday I didn't get a gift. Every time I was told we couldn't afford to fix my car's AC. Every time I was shamed for eating a second slice of bread. I turned off the ignition. The silence of the night rushed in, but inside my head it was screaming. I didn't have a plan, not a real one. I just had a desperate, clawing need to balance the scales. If Dad wouldn't pay me and if he wouldn't let me leave, I was going to take what I needed to survive. I got out of the car. The wind was whipping through the trees, a cold, biting gust that felt like a warning. Don't go in there, the wind whispered. Run away now. But I couldn't run on empty. I had $12 in my wallet and a quarter tank of gas. I needed capital. I unlocked the front door quietly. The house smelled of lemon, pledge and underlying rot, the smell of a family that looks clean on the surface but is decaying underneath. Mum was already in bed. Her door was closed. She took sleeping pills at 9 p.m. to escape this reality. I didn't blame her. Sometimes I wished I could sleep through my life too. Dad wasn't home yet. The business dinner was running late. That left me and Ryan. I stood in the hallway. Listen, from beneath the floorboards, I heard the muffled thud, thud, thud of the bass from his speakers. He was deep in a game. He had his headset on. He wouldn't hear me walking upstairs. I didn't go to my room. I went to his. Ryan's bedroom was on the second floor down the hall from mine. He rarely slept there. He preferred passing out on the basement couch, but he kept his stuff there. I pushed his door open. It creaked. A high-pitched whine that made my skin crawl. I froze, waiting for the bass downstairs to stop. It didn't. I slipped inside and closed the door behind me. The room smelled like a locker room. Old sweat, Axe body spray and stale smoke. Piles of clothes were everywhere. Posters of bikini-clad women and guns covered the walls. It was the sanctuary of an angry, tight boy. I turned on the flashlight on my phone. I didn't dare flip the light switch. The sudden change in voltage might make the lights flicker downstairs. Where would he hide it? Drug addicts and paranoid people are predictable. They don't trust banks. They trust shoeboxes. They trust mattresses. I started with the dresser. I pulled open the drawers, rifling through wads of t-shirts and unmatched socks. Nothing. Just a few loose coins and a lighter. My heart was pounding in my throat, a frantic drumbeat. Hurry! He could come up any second. He could get thirsty. He could need the bathroom. I moved to the closet. It was a mess of boxes and old sporting equipment he never used. I started shifting things around. An old PlayStation box, a stack of comic books. Then I saw it on the top shelf, shoved behind a winter coat, was a metal lockbox, the kind you buy at Walmart for $20. I stood on my tiptoes and dragged it down. It was heavy. I sat on the floor, the box in my lap. It was locked, obviously. But Ryan wasn't a criminal mastermind. He was lazy. I looked around the room. On his nightstand, there was a keychain with a dozen keys on it. Keys to the house, the car, the shed. I grabbed the keychain. I tried the smallest silver key, too big. I tried the brass one. It didn't fit. Third try, a small jagged key. Click. The lock popped open and I took a deep breath, the air trembling in my lungs, and lifted the lid. I almost gasped aloud. It wasn't just cash. It was a treasure trove. There were stacks of $20 bills and hundreds rolled up with rubber bands. It had to be at least $3,000 or $4,000. Money he had skimmed from the salary Dad gave him. Money he used for weed and whatever else he did in the dark. But that wasn't what made my stomach turn. Nestled next to the money was a gold necklace. My gold necklace, the one with the small diamond pendant that my grandmother had given me before she died. It had vanished 2 years ago. I had torn my room apart looking for it. Dad had accused me of losing it, calling me irresponsible and careless. Ryan had stolen it. He had kept it, not to sell it, but as a trophy, a little piece of me that he owned. And next to the necklace, a butterfly knife, illegal in New York. The blade was folded, but I knew what it looked like. I stared at the contents of the box. This was it. This was my exit strategy. I didn't take the necklace. I didn't take the knife. I grabbed 2 rolls of cash. It looked like maybe $2,000. It wasn't stealing. It was back pay. It was a fraction of what they owed me. I shoved the cash into my bra, the safest place I could think of. I closed the box. I was about to lock it when the sound hit me like a physical blow, the bass downstairs. It stopped. The silence was sudden and violent. Then the creak of the basement door opening. Oh God, I scrambled up from the floor. I tried to shove the box back onto the shelf, but my hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I managed to push it behind the coat. Footsteps! Heavy, thudding footsteps on the stairs. He wasn't going to the kitchen. He was coming up. Think, Jennifer, think! I couldn't leave the room. He would see me in the hallway. There was no closet space to hide in. Under the bed, too cliche. He would see my feet. I was trapped. The footsteps reached the landing. They paused. Maybe he was going to the bathroom. Please go to the bathroom. The footsteps turned. They were coming down the hall. Toward his room. I stood in the middle of the dark room, frozen. The flashlight on my phone was off now. I was a statue in the shadow. The doorknob turned. The door swung open. The hallway light flooded in, silhouetting him. He was huge. He filled the frame. He didn't see me at first. He walked in, reaching for the light switch on the wall. Flick! The overhead light blazed to life. Ryan stopped dead. He blinked, his brain trying to process the image. Me, standing in the middle of his room, my face pale, my chest heaving. His eyes went from my face to the closet door, which was slightly ajar, and then to the dresser drawers I hadn't closed all the way. Then back to me. His expression changed. It went from confusion to a cold, predatory rage. What? His voice was a low growl. Are you doing in here? I tried to speak, but my throat was dry as sandpaper. I was looking for... You were snooping. He stepped into their room and kicked the door shut behind him. The sound of the door closing was the loudest thing I had ever heard. I was looking for my necklace, I blurted out. It was half-truth. The one Grandma gave me, I know you took it. He smiled, a nasty, crooked smile. You think I took your cheap jewellery? I saw it, I said, my voice gaining a tiny bit of strength. In the box, along with the money you didn't earn, Ryan. His smile vanished. You touched my money? He took a step toward me. That's company money, I yelled, stepping back until my legs hit the bed. You're on the payroll for $65,000 a year. I saw the files. You steal from us while I work like a slave. Shut up, he hissed. You don't know what you're talking about. I know everything, I screamed. The adrenaline was taking over. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was hysterical. I know you're a thief. I know you're a psycho who kills cats. And I'm telling Dad. I'm going to tell him everything. Ryan laughed. It was a dry, humourless sound. You think Dad cares? he asked. You think he doesn't know? I froze. What? Dad gave me that money, you idiot, Ryan spat, inching closer. It's a tax write-off. He puts me on the payroll to lower his taxes and he gives me the cash so I can... He waved his hand vaguely. So I can be happy. So I can stay out of his hair. My world shattered. Dad knew. Dad wasn't just enabling him. Dad was funding him. Dad was paying his son $65,000 to play video games and smoke weed while he paid me, the one actually running his business, pennies. It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You're disgusting, I whispered. Both of you. Give it back, Ryan said, holding out his hand. What? The money. I know you took some. I can see it in your eyes. You're shaking. No, I said. I crossed my arms over my chest, protecting the cash hidden in my bra. It's mine. I earned it. Give it back. He lunged. It happened so fast. 1 second he was standing there, the next he was on me. His heavy hands grabbed my shoulders, slamming me backward onto the bed. I screamed, "Get off me!" He wasn't hitting me, he was grappling, trying to rip my shirt open to get the money. His weight was crushing. He smelled of sweat and rage. "You thief," he yelled, pinning my arms down. "You useless bitch, stealing from me!" I kicked him. I kneed him in the groin as hard as I could. He howled in pain and rolled off me. I scrambled off the bed, gasping for air. My shirt was torn. My hair was wild. I ran for the door. I got my hand on the knob just as he grabbed my hair. He yanked me back. I fell hard onto the floor, my hip hitting the hardwood with a sickening crunch. "You're not going anywhere," he screamed. He was standing over me now, his face red, veins popping in his neck. He raised his foot to kick me. I curled into a ball, waiting for the impact. "What is going on here?" The voice boomed from the hallway. The door flew open. Dad stood there. He was still in his suit, his tie loosened. He looked from Ryan, panting and red-faced, to me, cowering on the floor with a torn shirt. "Daddy!" I sobbed, scrambling up. "He attacked me! He has a knife in his box! He stole Grandma's necklace! He's crazy!" I ran toward Dad, thinking, hoping that this was it. This was the moment he would protect me. He had to. His daughter was on the floor. Dad didn't hug me. He didn't step between us. He looked at Ryan. "Is this true?" Ryan stood up straight, smoothing his shirt. The mask of the psychopath slid back into place instantly. He looked calm, injured. "She broke into my room, Dad," Ryan said, his voice level. "I caught her stealing my savings. She went crazy when I tried to stop her. She started hitting me." "Liar!" I shrieked. "He's lying. Look at the box. Look at the money." Dad looked at me. His eyes were cold, hard as flint. "Did you take money from your brother?" Dad asked. "It's not his money," I yelled. "It's company money." "You pay him $65,000 to do nothing, and you pay me nothing." Dad's face darkened. "So you were snooping in the company files too, spying on me?" I stopped. The air left the room. "He wasn't mad that Ryan attacked me. He was mad that I knew the truth." Of course I knew," Dad sneered. "I run this family. I decide who gets what. Ryan is my son. He carries the family name. You are a temporary guest until some man takes you off my hands. Why should I invest in you?" The cruelty of it was breathtaking. It was absolute. "Guest," I choked out. "I run your business. I save you millions." "You do what you're told," Dad roared, stepping forward. He raised his hand and I flinched, expecting a slap. He didn't hit me. He pointed at my chest. "Give him the money," Dad commanded. "What? The money you stole? Give it back to Ryan, now." I looked at my father. I looked at the man who had raised me, who I had tried so hard to please, and I saw nothing. No love, no fatherhood, just a tyrant protecting his heir. I reached into my shirt and pulled out the rolls of cash. My hands were shaking, but not fear anymore. I threw the money on the floor. It scattered across the hardwood. "There," I spat. "Take it. Take your blood money." Ryan smirked and bent down to pick it up. "Get out of my sight," Dad said, turning his back on me. "Go to your room. We will discuss your punishment in the morning. Maybe it's time we sent you back to the village in Bangladesh. Clearly, America has spoiled you. Sent back to the village." That was the threat. That was the end game. He was going to ship me off like a defective package to get married to some stranger in a village I had never seen. I walked out of the room. My hip throbbed. My heart was dead. I walked down the hall to my room. I didn't close the door. I didn't turn on the light. I stood in the darkness, listening to them downstairs. I heard Dad laughing. I heard Ryan laughing. They were bonding over my humiliation. They thought I was broken. They thought I would go to sleep, wake up tomorrow and apologise. They thought I was trapped. But they forgot one thing. I had the keys. Not the house keys, the car keys. They were still in my pocket. And I had something else, something dangerous, hope. Not the someday kind of hope, the burn it all down kind of hope. I looked around my room, my nice furniture, my degree on the wall, my clothes. I didn't take anything, no suitcase, no bag. If I took a bag, they would hear the zipper. I needed to be a ghost. I wore my torn shirt, I put on my sneakers, I grabbed my wallet with the $12 inside. I walked to the window. We were on the second floor, but there was a trellis, a wooden lattice for the ivy that grew up the side of the house. I used to climb it when I was 10. Could I climb it now? The monster, the giant. I opened the window. The cold night air rushed in, filling my lungs. It tasted like oxygen. It tasted like life. I swung my leg over the sill. I looked back at my room one last time. The room where I had cried 1,000 tears. The room where I had prayed for death. Goodbye, Jennifer. I whispered, died room. I stepped out onto the trellis. It groaned under my weight, but it held. I climbed down, scraping my hands, tearing my pants. I hit the grass with a soft thud. I was out, but I wasn't free yet. The car was in the driveway. If I started it, they would hear. I had to push it. I put the car in neutral. I leaned my weight against the bumper. It was heavy. My muscles burned. My injured hips screamed. Push, I told myself. Push like your life depends on it, because it does. The car rolled, slowly at first, then faster. Down the driveway, into the street. I guided it quietly, terrified the tyres would crunch too loud on the gravel. I pushed it half a block, down the hill, away from the house with the blue light in the basement. When I was far enough away, under the flickering street lamp of the next block, I jumped in. I turned the key. The engine roared to life. I didn't look back in the rearview mirror. I didn't check for traffic. I slammed my foot on the gas. I was driving into the night with $12, a torn shirt, and no destination. I was homeless. I was broke. I was alone. But for the first time in 28 years, the air coming through the vents felt mine. The breaking point had passed. Now, the survival began. The gaslight on the dashboard had been screaming at me for 20 miles. I was somewhere on I-95 North, crossing the border into Connecticut. The adrenaline that had propelled me out of the window and down the trellis was gone, replaced by a cold, shaking exhaustion. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so hard my fingers felt like claws. I pulled into a 24-hour truck stop. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, illuminating the asphalt in a sickly yellow glow. I parked the car, my father's company car, in the darkest corner of the lot behind a massive 18-wheeler. I sat there for a moment listening to the engine tick as it cooled. This is it, I thought. This is what freedom looks like. It didn't look like a movie. It didn't look like a montage of shopping bags and smiling faces. It looked like a terrified woman in a torn shirt with $12 in her pocket, shivering in a sedan that didn't belong to her. I couldn't keep the car. It had GPS. Dad would report it stolen by morning. If the cops found me, they'd drag me back, or worse, arrest me. I grabbed my wallet. I grabbed the spare hoodie I kept in the trunk for emergencies. I grabbed a bottle of water, and then I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I left the keys in the ignition. I walked away from the car. I walked away from the leather seats, the climate control, the safety of the metal box. I walked toward the Greyhound bus station attached to the diner. I bought a ticket for the furthest place $12 could get me. One way to Burlington, Vermont, the lady at the counter said, popping her gum. She didn't look at my torn shirt. She didn't ask why I was crying. In transit stations at 3 a.m, everyone is running from something. I sat in the back of the bus as it rumbled to life. As we pulled onto the highway, watching the New York skyline fade into a tiny cluster of stars in the rearview mirror, I realised something. I was invisible. For the first time in my life, nobody was watching me. Nobody was critiquing my size. Nobody was tracking my spending. I was just a ghost on a bus. And in that invisibility, finally found room to breathe. 3 months later, my alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. It wasn't a digital clock in a luxury bedroom anymore. It was a cracked iPhone screen in a room the size of a closet. I rolled out of the twin mattress that sat directly on the floor. The floorboards were cold. The apartment was a basement studio in Burlington, drafty, smelling faintly of damp wood and maple syrup, but it was mine, and I paid the rent with cash tips. My name wasn't on the lease. I sublet it from a college student who was studying abroad. I was no longer Jennifer the monster. I was just Jen, the girl who made the cinnamon rolls at Elena's bakery. I pulled on my uniform, a black t-shirt and jeans. Jeans that I had bought at a thrift store for $5. Jeans that were a size 12, not a size 6. And for the first time in history, I didn't care about the number on the tag. I walked to the bakery in the dark. The crisp Vermont air stinging my cheek. The snow crunched under my boots. I loved the cold. It made me feel alive. When I unlocked the bakery door, the smell hit me. Yeast, sugar, warmth. It was the smell of safety. A morning sunshine. Elena was already there, hauling a £50 bag of flour like it was a pillow. Elena was 60, tough as nails, with a laugh that sounded like a chainsaw starting up. She was the one who hired me when I walked in 3 months ago, looking like a stray dog and asking if she needed help doing dishes. She didn't ask for a resume. She looked in my eyes, saw the hunger, and handed me an apron. Morning, Elena, I said, grabbing the dough mixer. You look different today, she said, squinting at me while she cracked eggs. Different good or different bad? I joked. Different lighter, she said. Like you put down a heavy backpack. Maybe I had. Work was hard, my back ached, my hands were calloused from kneading dough. I made minimum wage plus tips. By my father's standards, I was a failure, a peasant. But here's the thing about peasant work. It's honest. Nobody screamed at me here. If I made a mistake, Elena just said, fix it, honey. And we moved on. Around 10 a.m, the morning rush hit. The line was out the door. I was working the counter, pouring lattes, bagging pastries. Hey, Jen. I looked up. It was David. David was a regular. He was a local carpenter, flannel shirt, sawdust in his beard, kind eyes. He came in every day for a black coffee and a bear claw. Hey, David. I smiled. The usual. Actually, he leaned on the counter, looking a little nervous. I was wondering, do you like pizza? I blinked. Pizza? There's this place down on Church Street. Best wood-fired pizza in the state. I was thinking, maybe you'd want to go tonight. My heart did that traitorous little flutter. The old voices, the dark thoughts tried to rush in. He's mocking you. He thinks you're easy. Look at you, you're covered in flour, you're a mess. But then I looked at David and he wasn't looking at my body with disgust. He wasn't looking past me. He was looking at me. He was blushing. He was nervous because he liked me. I started to say no, it was a reflex. The monster doesn't date. But then I remembered the trellis. I remembered pushing the car. I remembered the girl who died in that bedroom so I could live. I love pizza, I said. My voice was steady. David's face lit up like a Christmas tree. Great, pick you up at 7. 7 is perfect. I watched him walk away. I touched my cheek. I was smiling. A real smile. Not the practice mask I used to wear at family dinners. That evening, I stood in front of the small mirror in my bathroom. This was the moment of truth. The mirror had always been my enemy. The judge. The jury. I looked at my reflection. I saw the curves. I saw the broad shoulders. I saw the sturdy frame my father despised. But I didn't see a monster anymore. I saw a body that had climbed down a wall. A body that had walked miles in the cold. A body that could lift sacks of flour. A body that had carried me out of hell. I wasn't a delicate flower. I was a tree. And trees are strong. Trees weather storms. Trees provide shelter. You are not broken, I whispered to the reflection. You are just beginning. I put on a little lipstick, the only luxury I had bought myself, and walked out of the door. The date was magic. Not movie magic, real magic. We ate pizza. We talked about books. We walked by the lake. He didn't ask why I didn't talk to my family. He sensed the boundary and respected it. When he walked me home, he hesitated at the door. I had a really good time, Jen, he said. Me too. He leaned in. I didn't pull away. He kissed me. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't possessive. It was soft. It was a question, not a demand. And for the first time in 29 years, I felt cherished. Not for my degree, not for my family name, but for me. 2 weeks later, it was a Tuesday, a grey, rainy Tuesday. I walked into the bakery, shaking off my umbrella. The lights were off. Eleanor, I called out, you okay? Why is it dark? Suddenly clicked. The lights flooded on. Surprise! I screamed and dropped my umbrella. The bakery was filled with people. Elena, David, the other baristas, even the mailman, Stan. There were balloons. Purple and gold. There was a banner that looked hand-painted. Happy birthday, Jen! I stood there frozen. My mouth hung open. I didn't tell anyone it was my birthday, I whispered. Elena walked over, wiping her hands on her apron. She was grinning. You filled out a tax form last week, honey. I saw the date. Did you think we'd let you spend your 29th birthday alone? I looked around the room. On the counter was a cake. A massive 3-tiered chocolate cake. It was lopsided. It was messy. I baked it, David said, stepping forward. He looked sheepish. I'm a carpenter, not a baker. The structural integrity is questionable. I looked at the cake. I looked at these people. I had spent my entire life in a mansion. surrounded by wealth, begging for a crumb of affection. I had prayed for a surprise, for a celebration, for someone to notice I existed. And here I was in a small bakery in Vermont, broke, tired, and I was the richest woman in the world. The tears came then. Not the hot, stinging tears of shame I used to cry in my pillow. These were warm. They were healing waters. Thank you, I choked out. Thank you so much. Elena hugged me. It was a bone-crushing hug. Happy birthday, kid. You made it. We ate the cake. It was dry, but it tasted like manna from heaven. We laughed. We danced to music played from an iPhone. At one point, I stepped back and just watched them. I watched David laughing at a joke Elena made. I watched the snow falling outside the window. I realised the dark thoughts were gone. The suicidal ideation that had plagued me for years. It was silent. It wasn't that life was perfect. I still had student loans I couldn't pay. I still had trauma nightmares sometimes. I still looked over my shoulder when I saw a car that looked like my dad's Mercedes. But I had the off switch. I had found it. The switch wasn't suicide. The switch was living. The switch was cutting the toxic cord. The switch was accepting that I was allowed to take up space. The switch was finding people who loved the tree, not people who wanted to chop it down to build a fence. Later that night, I sat on my fire escape, wrapped in a blanket, looking up at the stars. My phone buzzed. I still had the same number, though I kept it on Do Not Disturb for all unknown calls. I looked at the screen, a voicemail from an unknown number. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the delete button, but something made me curious. I pressed play. It was my mother's voice. She sounded far away, whispering, "Jen, if you get this, I just want you to know the house is quiet without you. Your father, he is angry, but he is also scared. He lost his punching bag, and Ryan is getting worse. You were the glue, Jen. You held the madness together." She paused. I could hear her breathing. "I found your journals," she whispered. "I read them. I didn't know you hurt that much. I am so sorry I was weak. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you. Run, baby. Run far away and never come back. Be happy for both of us." Click. I stared at the phone. I felt a pang of sadness for her. She was still in the cage. She was still a ghost haunting her own life. But I wasn't the glue anymore. I wasn't the sacrifice. I deleted the voicemail. Then I took the SIM card out of the phone. I snapped it in half. I tossed the pieces into the snow below. It was done. The final tether was cut. I took a deep breath. The air tasted of pine and snow and chocolate cake. My name is Jennifer. I am 29 years old. I am 5'6". I take up space. I have scars on my heart, but they are healing. I used to pray for the sun not to rise. Now I can't wait to see what tomorrow brings, because for the first time in my life, the story isn't being written by my father. It isn't being written by my trauma. It's being written by me. And trust me, it's going to be a bestseller.